the blood still crusted under Lucy Ashford's fingernails when she stumbled into Glenrio, New Mexico territory, 3 days after watching bandits murder her entire family on the trail from Missouri. The year was 1877, and the dusty settlement straddled the border between New Mexico and Texas, a rough collection of weathered buildings that looked ready to blow away with the next strong wind. Lucy's dress hung in tatters, her face bore scratches from thorns and brambles, and her dark blonde hair had come loose from its pins days ago. She had walked for miles after the attack, surviving on creek water and wild berries, her mind replaying the horrible scenes over and over until she thought she might go mad from it. She made it as far as the general store before her legs gave out. The shopkeeper's wife, a kind woman named Martha, took one look at the traumatized girl and brought her inside, asking no questions until Lucy had been fed and given water. When the story finally came out in broken sentences and tears, Martha wrapped her arms around the 19-year-old and held her while she sobbed. "You will stay with us," Martha insisted, "at least until you figure out what you want to do next." Lucy had no other options, no other family, and nowhere else to go. She accepted the offer with gratitude, though she felt like a ghost moving through the world rather than a living person. Martha and her husband Henry gave her a small room in the back of their living quarters above the store. It had a narrow bed with a patchwork quilt and a window that looked out toward the mountains in the distance. That first night, Lucy lay down on the unfamiliar bed and closed her eyes, exhausted beyond measure. Sleep came quickly, but with it came the nightmares. She saw her father's face as the bullet struck him, heard her mother's screams, watched her younger brother try to run before he was cut down. The bandits had left her alive by accident, thinking her dead when she had fainted from terror and hit her head on a wagon wheel. She had come to hours later, surrounded by death and silence. Lucy woke screaming, drenched in sweat, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Martha came running, soothing her with gentle words, but the terror remained. The second night brought the same horrors. The third night as well. By the end of the first week, Lucy dreaded sunset. The exhaustion was making her ill, dark circles forming under her green eyes, her hands trembling constantly. "You need proper rest," Martha said with worry creasing her brow. "This cannot continue, Lucy. Your body will give out." "I cannot stop seeing them," Lucy whispered. "Every time I close my eyes they are there, dead, because I lived and they did not." Martha suggested warm milk with honey, herbal teas, even a small amount of whiskey. Nothing helped. The nightmares came every single time Lucy fell asleep, dragging her back to that terrible afternoon on the trail. She began to fear sleep more than anything else, sometimes forcing herself to stay awake until she collapsed from sheer exhaustion, only to be jerked awake by the same horrible visions. 2 weeks after her arrival in Glenrio, Lucy was hanging laundry behind the store when she saw him for the first time. A massive figure was riding into town from the north, seated on a sturdy Appaloosa that looked small beneath his considerable frame. The man stood well over 6 feet tall, with shoulders so broad they blocked out the sun. His hair was dark brown and fell past his shoulders, tied back with a leather cord. He wore buckskin clothing that had seen hard use, and even from a distance, Lucy could see the powerful muscles in his arms and chest. "That is Adam Hawthorne," Martha said, coming out to stand beside Lucy. "The mountain man. He comes down from the high country every few months to trade furs and stock up on supplies. Keeps to himself mostly, but he is decent enough. Saved a family from a bear attack last spring." Lucy watched as Adam dismounted in front of the store with fluid grace despite his size. His face was rugged and weathered from years of outdoor living, with a strong jaw covered in dark stubble and striking blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He moved with the confident ease of a man completely comfortable in his own skin, someone who had faced nature's worst and survived. When he entered the store, his presence seemed to fill the entire space. Henry greeted him warmly, and Adam responded with a slight nod, his voice a deep rumble when he spoke. Lucy had come inside to help, and she felt those blue eyes land on her with curiosity. She quickly looked away, suddenly self-conscious of her gaunt appearance and the haunted look she knew lingered in her face. Adam conducted his business efficiently, trading a stack of prime beaver pelts and elk hides for supplies. Sugar, coffee, flour, salt, ammunition, tobacco, new traps, and various other items were loaded into a pack. He paid for what the furs did not cover with gold coins, then hefted the heavy load as if it weighed nothing. "Miss," he said, tipping his head slightly to Lucy as he passed. His voice sent an unexpected shiver through her, though not from fear. There was something solid and reassuring about him, like an old growth tree that had weathered countless storms. She managed a small nod in return before he disappeared through the door. "He lives up in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains," Martha explained after he had gone. "All alone up there, can you imagine? Months at a time with no human contact. I suppose some men are built for that kind of life." Lucy found herself thinking about Adam Hawthorne more than she expected over the following days. There had been something in his eyes when he looked at her, a flash of recognition perhaps, as if he saw past the surface to the pain beneath. But she pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on her daily tasks of helping in the store and trying to find some way to cope with her nightly torment. The nightmares continued without mercy. Sometimes she saw new variations, her mind conjuring even worse scenarios than what had actually happened. She would wake gasping, sometimes screaming, always terrified. Martha and Henry were endlessly patient, but Lucy could see the worry growing in their faces. She was wasting away, unable to eat properly, unable to function as a normal person should. 3 weeks after that first sighting of Adam, Lucy was in the store alone one afternoon, while Martha and Henry had gone to visit a sick neighbor. The bell above the door chimed, and she looked up to see the mountain man entering again, which surprised her since he had just been there recently. "Forgot something," Adam said gruffly, though his eyes held a different story. He moved through the store slowly, picking up a few small items, but Lucy caught him glancing at her several times. Finally, he approached the counter where she stood. "You are new to town," he said. It was not quite a question. "Yes, sir, a few weeks now." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "You have got trouble in your eyes," Adam continued, his directness startling. "The kind that does not let you sleep." Lucy stared at him, shocked that this stranger could read her so easily. She felt tears prick her eyes and looked down quickly. "I manage well enough." "No, you do not." His voice was not unkind, just matter of fact. "I have seen that look before. In men who survived battles they should not have. In people who watch things no one should have to watch." "I do not wish to speak of it," Lucy said, her hands trembling as she tried to wrap his purchases. Adam was quiet for a moment, then reached out and gently stilled her shaking hands with one of his own. His palm was warm and calloused, strong beyond measure, yet his touch was remarkably gentle. "I am not asking you to, but I know something about nightmares, about the dark things that chase a person when they close their eyes." Lucy looked up at him, meeting those blue eyes directly for the first time. There was understanding there and something else. Something that made her feel less alone than she had in weeks. "How do you make them stop?" "Sometimes you cannot, not alone." He withdrew his hand slowly. "But sometimes having someone there, someone who understands, can help chase them away, even for just one night." The implications of his words would have scandalized her under normal circumstances, but Lucy was too desperate, too exhausted to care about propriety. Still, she could not simply accept such an offer from a stranger, no matter how much something inside her wanted to trust him. "I do not know you, sir," she managed. "Adam Hawthorne. I live up in the high country, have for the past 8 years. I came out here from Kentucky after the war. Seen things I wish I had not, lost people who mattered." He paused. "I know what it is like to be afraid of sleep. Lucy Ashford." She swallowed hard. "My family was killed by bandits on the trail from Missouri. I watched it happen. Every night since, I relive it. I have not had one night without the nightmares, not one." Adam's expression softened, a flash of pain crossing his features. "I am sorry. That is a heavy burden for anyone, especially someone so young." "I am 19, Lucy said, feeling the need to assert that she was not a child. "And I am 27, Adam replied. "Old enough to have learned that sometimes we all need help, whether we want to admit it or not." He picked up his packages. "I will be in town for a few more days, camping just north of here. If you find yourself unable to bear another night of those dreams, you can find me. No expectations, no obligations. Just one person who understands helping another." After he left, Lucy stood behind the counter for a long time, her mind racing. The offer was highly improper, possibly dangerous, and completely outside anything she had ever considered doing. But another part of her, the part that was slowly being destroyed by lack of sleep and constant terror, desperately wanted to take him up on it. That night, the nightmares were worse than ever. Lucy woke 4 separate times, each dream more vivid and horrible than the last. By dawn, she had made her decision. She could not continue like this. If there was even a chance that Adam Hawthorne could help, she had to try. She told Martha she was going for a walk to clear her head, which was not entirely a lie. She headed north out of town, following the direction Adam had indicated. It did not take long to find his camp. He had set up near a small creek with cottonwood trees providing shade. His horse grazed nearby, and a small fire burned in a ring of stones. Adam was skinning a rabbit when she approached, his powerful arms moving with practiced efficiency. He looked up at her arrival, showing no surprise, as if he had been expecting her. "The nightmares?" he asked simply. Lucy nodded, suddenly unable to speak. Now that she was here, the full weight of what she was doing crashed over her. She was seeking out a strange man, alone, miles from town. This could end very badly, but something in Adam's steady gaze calmed her racing heart. "Come, sit." He gestured to a log he had positioned near the fire. "I will make coffee and we can talk. Nothing has to happen that you do not want to happen, Lucy. I give you my word on that." She sat carefully, watching as he finished with the rabbit and then prepared coffee in a battered pot over the fire. His movements were efficient and calm, the actions of a man completely comfortable in this environment. He poured coffee into 2 tin cups and handed her one before settling onto another log across from her. "Tell me about them," Adam said after a few moments of silence. "The nightmares." "What do you see?" At first, Lucy did not think she could speak of it. But something about the quiet morning, the sound of the creek, and Adam's patient presence loosened the words. She told him everything. About the attack, about watching her family die, about the crushing guilt of being the only survivor. About how every night she was forced to relive it, sometimes with horrible variations her mind created to torture her further. Adam listened without interrupting, his blue eyes never leaving her face. When she finally finished, tears streaming down her cheeks, he was quiet for a long moment. "You carry a weight that would break most people," he said finally. "The fact that you are still standing, still trying, that speaks to a strength you might not even know you have." I do not feel strong. I feel broken. Broken things can heal. It takes time and it takes help, but they can heal. Adam set down his coffee cup and leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. I told you I know about nightmares. After the war, I could not sleep for months without seeing the faces of men I had killed, men I had watched die, friends blown apart by artillery, the screams of the wounded. It got so bad I considered ending my own life just to make it stop. Lucy drew in a sharp breath. What changed? An old trapper took me under his wing. He had been through similar things in the Mexican War. He did not try to fix me or tell me to just forget about it. He just sat with me through the nights, talked when I needed to talk, stayed quiet when I needed silence, reminded me I was not alone in the darkness. After a while, the nightmares started to lose their power. They still come sometimes, but they no longer control me. That is what you are offering me, to sit with me through the night, if you want it, if you think it might help. Adam's expression was serious. I will not touch you inappropriately. I will not take advantage. I will simply be there, another person present, someone who understands. Sometimes that is enough to change things. Lucy looked into her coffee cup, watching the steam rise. Every instinct told her to trust this man, despite the short time she had known him. There was an honesty to Adam Hawthorne that she had rarely encountered. He did not hide behind pretty words or false promises. He simply offered what he could and left the choice to her. Tonight, she asked quietly, if that is what you want, but not here, I will rent a room at the boarding house in town. 2 rooms if you prefer, side by side. Or you can tell Martha and Henry what we are attempting. Have them nearby for your safety and peace of mind. The fact that he immediately offered ways to make the situation more proper and safe cemented Lucy's decision. 1 room should be sufficient. And yes, I will tell Martha and Henry. They have been so good to me, I do not wish to deceive them. Adam nodded approvingly. Good. Trust is important, especially with the people who care about you. They spent the rest of the morning talking, though the conversation moved to lighter topics. Adam told her about life in the mountains, about the animals he encountered, about the harsh beauty of the high country in winter. Lucy found herself relaxing in his presence, even laughing once at a story about a particularly stubborn mule he had once owned. It felt good to laugh, to remember she could still feel something other than fear and grief. When Lucy returned to town around midday, she went straight to Martha and explained everything. She had expected shock or disapproval, but Martha simply listened carefully, asked a few questions about Adam, and then nodded thoughtfully. I have never heard anything bad about Adam Hawthorne, Martha said slowly. He is odd, certainly, preferring the solitary life he does. But he has always been respectful when in town, and as I mentioned, he saved those people from the bear. Still, Lucy, you are taking a risk. You know that, do you not? I do. But Martha, I cannot continue as I have been. I am losing myself to these nightmares. If there is any chance this could help, I must try. Martha reached out and squeezed Lucy's hand. Then Henry and I support you, and we will be just down the hall at the boarding house. Adam Hawthorne may be a mountain man, but if he harms you in any way, he will answer to this entire town. That evening, Adam secured a room at the boarding house as promised. It was simple but clean, with a double bed, a washstand, a chair, and a small table. Martha and Henry took a room 2 doors down, making their protective presence known. Adam accepted this without comment, seeming to respect their concern for Lucy. As night fell and the time came to actually follow through with the plan, Lucy felt her anxiety rising. She changed into her nightgown in a separate room, then wrapped herself in a thick robe before returning. Adam had removed his boots and his buckskin shirt, leaving him in just his trousers. In the lamplight, Lucy could see the full extent of his muscular build. His chest was broad and powerful, marked with several scars that spoke of a hard life. His arms looked like they could snap a man in half, yet she had only ever seen him move with careful control. "How do you want to do this?" Adam asked, his voice low and calm. "I can sit in the chair while you take the bed, or we can share the bed with space between us. Your choice entirely." Lucy looked at the narrow chair and then at the bed. If Adam was going to help chase away the nightmares, she suspected proximity would matter. "We can share the bed," she said quietly, "but perhaps with some space between us, at least at first." Adam nodded and moved to the far side of the bed, settling on top of the covers rather than under them. Lucy extinguished the lamp and climbed into bed on her side, pulling the quilts up to her chin. The darkness immediately brought a flutter of panic to her chest. "I am right here," Adam's deep voice came through the dark. "You are not alone, Lucy. Try to relax." She closed her eyes, her entire body tense, waiting for sleep and the inevitable nightmares that would follow. But something was different tonight. The presence of another person, the sound of Adam's steady breathing, the solid reality of someone else in the room created a buffer she had not experienced before. When sleep finally came, it was gentler than it had been in weeks. The nightmare started as it always did. The wagon train, the dust, the sound of approaching horses. But this time, when the terror began to rise, she heard Adam's voice cutting through it. "Lucy. Lucy, you are safe. I am here." She was caught between sleep and waking, the nightmare still playing but Adam's voice anchoring her to reality. She felt movement, and then his hand carefully took hers, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. "Come back," Adam said softly. "Come back to this room, to safety. The past cannot hurt you here." Lucy's eyes fluttered open, her heart still racing but the nightmare loosening its grip. In the faint moonlight coming through the window, she could see Adam's face, concern etched in his features. "You were starting to have the nightmare," he explained. "I could tell by your breathing, the small sounds you were making. Is this all right?" He indicated their joined hands. Lucy nodded, not trusting her voice. The warmth of his hand in hers was an anchor, something real and present to hold on to. She took several deep breaths, willing her heart to slow. "Tell me something," she whispered. "Something real, something about your life in the mountains." Adam shifted slightly, still holding her hand. "In winter, when the snow gets deep, everything becomes silent. Not the silence of holding your breath, but a peaceful quiet where you can hear your own thoughts clearly. I have a cabin up near the tree line. Nothing fancy, just 4 walls and a roof, but it is mine. In the mornings I wake to elk grazing in the meadow outside. Sometimes I see mountain lions, bears, eagles. It is a hard life, but it is honest. The mountain does not lie or pretend. It simply is what it is." His deep voice washed over her, painting pictures of a world far removed from wagon trains and violence. Lucy felt herself relaxing again, her breathing steadying. "It sounds lonely." "It is," Adam admitted. "That is part of why I chose it. After the war, I could not stand being around people. Too much noise, too many memories. The mountain gave me space to heal, or at least to find a way to live with what I had seen and done." "Do you think you will ever come back down, live among people again?" Adam was quiet for a moment. "I did not think so until recently. But things change." "People change." Lucy felt the weight of his words, the implication behind them. She tightened her grip on his hand slightly. "Will you keep talking, just so I know you are here? Of course." Adam continued speaking in that low, rumbling voice, telling her stories about his life in the high country. About winters so harsh he could barely leave his cabin for days. About summers when wildflowers covered the meadows in riots of color. About the challenges and small victories of living off the land. His words created a buffer between Lucy and her nightmares, giving her something else to focus on besides the darkness in her own mind. She drifted in and out of sleep, but each time the nightmares tried to take hold, Adam's voice or the squeeze of his hand pulled her back. As the night progressed, Lucy found herself moving closer to him, seeking the comfort of his solid presence. Adam accepted this without comment, adjusting his position to accommodate her. By the time dawn began to lighten the sky, Lucy was curled against his side, her head resting on his shoulder, his arm wrapped protectively around her. It was the first time since the attack that she had slept more than a few hours consecutively. The first time the nightmares had not completely taken over. When she opened her eyes fully as morning light filled the room, Lucy felt something she had not felt in weeks: actual rest. Adam was already awake, his blue eyes watching her with a gentle expression. "How do you feel?" "Better," Lucy said, and was surprised to find tears welling up. "So much better. I did not think it was possible." "The nightmares will still come," Adam warned gently. "This is not a cure. But it is a start. The mind needs to remember it can rest, that sleep does not have to mean only suffering." Lucy sat up slowly, aware now of how intimately she had been pressed against him, but unable to feel embarrassed about it. It had been comfort, pure and simple, offered without expectation. "Will you stay another night?" "I will stay as long as you need me to," Adam said simply. Over the following week, the pattern repeated. Lucy spent her days helping in the store and her nights in the boarding house room with Adam. Each night grew a little easier. The nightmares still came, but they were less intense, less frequent. Adam's presence gave her something to hold on to, a lifeline back to reality when the darkness threatened to pull her under. During the days, they began spending time together outside of the nights. Adam would come by the store, and they would walk together at the edge of town, talking about everything and nothing. Lucy learned more about his past, about the family he had left behind in Kentucky, about his experiences in the war, about the slow healing he had found in the mountains. She told him more about her own family, sharing the good memories along with the painful end. Adam listened to all of it, never judging, never trying to rush her past her grief. He simply made space for all of it, the pain and the joy, the fear and the slowly growing hope. Martha watched the developing relationship with cautious approval. "That man cares for you," she told Lucy one afternoon. "I can see it in how he looks at you, how careful he is with you." "I care for him too," Lucy admitted. "I did not expect to feel anything like this, not after everything. But Adam makes me feel safe in a way I have not felt since before the attack." "Just be careful with your heart," Martha advised. "Mountain men are not known for settling down. Adam has chosen a solitary life for a reason. Do not assume he will give that up, even for you." The words lodged in Lucy's heart like a splinter. She had been so focused on the immediate help Adam was providing that she had not thought much about the future. But Martha was right to be concerned. Adam would eventually return to his mountains, to the life he had built there. And what would happen to Lucy then? That night, as they lay in bed together in what had become their comfortable arrangement, Lucy curled against Adam's chest with his arms around her. She finally asked the question that had been growing in her mind. "When will you return to the mountains?" She felt Adam's chest rise and fall with a deep breath. "I suppose I should have gone back a week ago. I had all my supplies. There was no real reason to stay except—" "Except," Lucy prompted when he trailed off, "except you." Adam's voice was quiet but firm. "I told myself I was staying to help you through the worst of the nightmares. And that is true, but it is not the whole truth." Lucy's heart began to beat faster. "What is the whole truth?" Adam shifted so he could look down at her, his blue eyes serious in the moonlight. The whole truth is that somewhere between that first day when I saw the pain in your eyes and now, I started to care about you as more than just someone who needed help. You have gotten under my skin, Lucy Ashford, in a way no one has in a very long time. I feel the same, Lucy whispered. These past weeks, you have not only helped chase away the nightmares, you have reminded me that I can still feel things other than fear and grief. You have made me want to heal, want to live again. Adam reached up and gently cupped her face with one large hand. I am not an easy man, Lucy. I have demons of my own. The life I lead is hard and isolated. I cannot offer you fancy things or an easy path. I do not want fancy things or an easy path, Lucy said, leaning into his touch. I want to feel safe. I want to heal. I want to be with someone who understands the dark places I have been. I want you, Adam. He leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss that was both gentle and full of restrained passion. Lucy responded without hesitation, her arms winding around his neck, pressing herself closer to him. The kiss deepened, and Lucy felt heat uncurl in her belly, a feeling she had thought might be dead forever. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adam rested his forehead against hers. I want you too, Lucy. More than I have wanted anything in years, but I need to know you are sure, you are still healing, still vulnerable. I will not take advantage of that. You are not taking advantage, Lucy insisted. I am choosing this. I am choosing you. They made love that night with a tenderness that brought tears to Lucy's eyes. Adam was careful with her, his large, powerful hands gentle despite their strength, constantly checking that she was comfortable, that she wanted to continue. For Lucy, it was a reclaiming of herself, a reminder that her body could feel pleasure instead of just pain, that intimacy could be beautiful instead of the violence she had witnessed. Afterward, wrapped in Adam's arms with her head on his chest, Lucy felt a peace she had not known was possible. For the first time since the attack, she fell asleep without fear and slept through the entire night without a single nightmare. Adam's steady heartbeat under her ear and his arms around her kept the darkness at bay completely. In the morning, they lay together quietly, neither wanting to break the spell of contentment that surrounded them. But eventually, reality had to be addressed. What happens now? Lucy asked softly. Adam was quiet for a moment, his hand stroking her hair. I have been thinking about that. I need to return to my cabin before the snows come. Winter supplies need to be laid in, preparations made. It is already late September. Lucy felt her heart sink, even though she had known this was coming. I understand. I am not finished, Adam said, a hint of amusement in his voice. I need to go back, but that does not mean I need to go back alone. Lucy sat up, looking at him with wide eyes. What are you saying? Adam sat up as well, taking both her hands in his. I am saying come with me, come to the mountains. It will not be easy and winters are harsh, but we would be together. I can continue to help you heal, and you can help me remember what it is like to share a life with someone. He paused, his expression vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. I am saying I love you, Lucy. I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a few weeks, but I do. I love you and I want you with me. Tears spilled down Lucy's cheeks, but for the first time in so long they were tears of joy rather than grief. I love you too. Yes, Adam, yes, I will go with you. They spent the next few days in preparation. Lucy explained her decision to Martha and Henry, who had mixed feelings about her leaving but could see how much Adam meant to her and how much better she had become since knowing him. Write to us, Martha insisted, hugging Lucy tightly. When you come down in the spring, come see us. Let us know you are well. I will, Lucy promised. You have both been so good to me, I will never forget that. Adam purchased additional supplies, including warmer clothes for Lucy, extra food stores, and items they would need to get through the winter months. He was methodical and thorough, making sure they would have everything necessary for survival in the harsh mountain environment. On the morning they were set to leave, Lucy said goodbye to the few people in Glenrio she had come to know. It was bittersweet, leaving this place that had been her refuge, but excitement outweighed the sadness. She was not running away this time. She was running toward something, toward a new life, toward hope. The journey into the mountains took several days. They traveled north and east, moving into higher elevations where the air grew thinner and cooler. Adam was a patient guide, pointing out landmarks, teaching her things she would need to know about surviving in this environment. Lucy soaked it all in, determined to be a partner to him rather than a burden. The landscape was breathtaking. Towering peaks surrounded them, covered in pine and aspen forests that were just beginning to show their fall colors. Streams ran clear and cold, full of trout. They saw elk, deer, and once in the distance, a massive grizzly bear. Adam always kept his rifle close, but he moved through this wild country with the ease of long familiarity. Finally, they arrived at Adam's cabin. It sat in a small clearing with a meadow stretching out in front of it and dense forest behind. The cabin was solidly built from hand-hewn logs, with a stone chimney and a covered porch. It was small, perhaps only one room inside, but it looked sturdy and well-maintained. "It is not much," Adam said, suddenly seeming uncertain. "It is perfect," Lucy said, and she meant it. This was not about luxury or comfort. This was about building a life with the man she loved, about finding peace in a place far from the violence and pain of her past. Inside, the cabin was simple but functional. A large bed took up one corner, a stone fireplace dominated one wall, and there was a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs, shelves for supplies and hooks for hanging clothes and equipment. It was clean and well-organized, everything in its place. "We will need to add on a bit," Adam said, looking around the space with a critical eye. "Another room, perhaps, more storage. I built this for one person. Now it needs to accommodate 2. "We have time," Lucy said, moving to stand beside him and taking his hand. "We have all the time we need." They fell into a routine over the following weeks. Adam taught Lucy how to fish in the icy streams, how to identify edible plants and where to find them, how to properly cure and preserve meat. Lucy proved to be a quick learner, and she found satisfaction in mastering these practical skills. She had always been capable, but her old life had not required this kind of hands-on survival knowledge. As autumn progressed into early winter, they worked together to prepare for the harsh months ahead. Adam hunted elk and deer, filling their larder with meat that he smoked and preserved. Lucy gathered nuts and berries, learning which plants could be stored and which needed to be used immediately. They cut and stacked firewood until they had enough to last through the coldest months. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire, talking or reading from the few books Adam owned. Lucy discovered he was more educated than she had expected, with a love of poetry that contrasted interestingly with his rough mountain man exterior. He would read to her in that deep, rumbling voice, and she would rest against him, feeling safe and content. The nightmares continued to fade. Some nights they still came, but they were less intense and less frequent. When they did appear, Adam was always there to pull her back, his voice and touch anchoring her to safety. Lucy began to sleep through entire nights regularly, her body finally releasing the constant state of tension it had held since the attack. As the first heavy snows began to fall in late November, sealing them into their mountain home for the winter, Lucy and Adam grew even closer. The isolation that might have been difficult for some people felt right to both of them. They were healing together, building a relationship based on trust, understanding, and genuine love. One evening in early December, as snow fell softly outside and the fire crackled warmly inside, Adam pulled Lucy into his lap as they sat in the chair by the hearth. She went willingly, snuggling against his broad chest, his arms wrapping around her securely. "You have any regrets?" Adam asked quietly. "About coming here, about leaving town." Lucy looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear that maybe she would realize she had made a mistake. She reached up and cupped his bearded jaw in her hand. "Not a single one. This is exactly where I am meant to be." "I want to marry you," Adam said suddenly. "Properly. When we go down to Glenrio in the spring, I want to marry you in front of the whole town. I want everyone to know you are mine and I am yours." "Yes," Lucy said without hesitation. "Yes, absolutely yes." Adam kissed her deeply, and Lucy felt the now familiar heat rise between them. Their intimacy had grown and deepened over the weeks, becoming one more way they connected and found comfort in each other. They moved to the bed, shedding clothes as they went, and made love with a passion that had grown from genuine love and trust. Afterward, as they lay tangled together under the thick quilts, Adam's hands gently stroking Lucy's back, she realized something profound. She had not had a nightmare that night. In fact, she had not had one in over a week. The terror that had controlled her for so long was finally loosening its grip. "They are almost gone," she whispered. "The nightmares. I can feel it, Adam. They are almost completely gone." Adam held her tighter, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "You are healing. I knew you would. You are stronger than you think, Lucy." "We are healing," Lucy corrected. "Both of us together." It was true. Adam had his own demons that he was facing, and Lucy's presence in his life was helping him as much as he had helped her. He was less isolated, less locked in his own painful memories. He laughed more, smiled more, engaged with life rather than just surviving it. The winter months passed in a comfortable rhythm. They were snowed in for weeks at a time, but it never felt oppressive. They had each other, and that was enough. Lucy learned to cook over the fireplace, becoming skilled at making hearty meals from their limited ingredients. Adam worked on expanding the cabin, framing out an additional room that he would complete once spring came, and he could move more freely. Lucy discovered she loved the quiet of the mountains, the way the snow muffled all sound, the beauty of ice-covered trees glittering in the sunlight. She understood now why Adam had sought this place after the war. There was a healing quality to the wilderness, a way it put human troubles into perspective against the vast indifference of nature. They talked for hours about everything. Their pasts, their hopes for the future, their fears and dreams. Lucy told Adam things she had never told anyone, and he did the same with her. The intimacy they built was not just physical but emotional and spiritual as well. By the time spring began to show the first signs of arrival in late March, with the snow starting to melt and the days growing longer, Lucy realized she had not had a nightmare in over a month. The terror that had plagued her every night was simply gone. She had healed, truly healed in a way she had not believed possible. "I slept without nightmares," she told Adam one morning as they ate breakfast, sunlight streaming through the window for the first time in weeks. "All winter long, you held me through the nights and you chased them away." "They are gone now, Adam, truly gone." Adam reached across the table and took her hand, his eyes shining with emotion. "You did the hard work of healing, Lucy. I just gave you a safe place to do it. I am so proud of you." "I could not have done it without you," Lucy said firmly. "You saved me, Adam Hawthorne. In every way a person can be saved." As April arrived and the snow continued to recede, they began making plans to travel down to Glenrio. Adam needed to trade his winter furs and resupply, and they both wanted to get married as Adam had promised. Lucy was excited to see Martha and Henry again, to show them how well she was doing, to share her happiness. The journey down was far easier than the journey up had been in the fall. They took their time, enjoying the trip, camping under the stars at night. Lucy no longer feared sleep, no longer dreaded closing her eyes. When she slept in Adam's arms under the vast Montana sky with stars wheeling overhead, her dreams were peaceful or non-existent. When they rode into Glenrio in mid-April, Martha was the first to see them. She came running out of the general store, her face lighting up with joy. She hugged Lucy tightly, then stood back to look at her. "My goodness," Martha breathed. "Look at you. You are completely transformed, Lucy. You look healthy and happy and whole." "I am," Lucy said, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I really am, Martha. Adam helped me heal, and now we are going to be married." The news spread quickly through the small town, and there was genuine celebration. The people of Glenrio had seen Lucy at her lowest, had worried for her survival. Seeing her returned so vibrant and clearly in love was cause for joy. They were married 3 days later by the circuit preacher who happened to be passing through. It was a simple ceremony held outside the general store, with most of the town in attendance. Lucy wore a new dress that Martha had helped her make, simple blue cotton that brought out her eyes. Adam wore clean buckskins and had trimmed his hair and beard, looking almost civilized despite his rough edges. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife, and Adam kissed her in front of everyone, Lucy felt a completion she had not known was possible. She had lost so much, suffered so terribly, but she had found something precious in the aftermath. She had found love, healing, and a future worth living. They stayed in Glenrio for a week, enjoying the time with Martha and Henry, restocking their supplies, and simply being part of a community for a little while. But both Lucy and Adam found themselves eager to return to their mountain home. That was where they belonged now, at least for the time being. The journey back was filled with laughter and joy, so different from the uncertain journey out the previous fall. They talked about their plans for the cabin, about possibly starting a family, about the future that stretched before them full of possibility. Summer in the high country was glorious. The meadow in front of their cabin exploded with wildflowers, just as Adam had described to Lucy during those first difficult nights. They worked on expanding the cabin, adding not just one additional room but 2, creating separate spaces for sleeping, living, and eventually children if they were blessed with them. Lucy became pregnant in late July, and they were both overjoyed. Adam became even more protective, if that was possible, constantly making sure Lucy was comfortable and not overworking herself. Lucy accepted his care with good grace, understanding it came from love rather than a belief she was fragile. As fall arrived again and they prepared once more for winter, Lucy reflected on the full year that had passed since she had stumbled into Glenrio, broken and traumatized. She was not that person anymore. That Lucy had been a victim, terrified of her own shadow, unable to sleep without nightmares tearing her apart. This Lucy was a survivor, a mountain woman, a wife, and soon to be a mother. She was strong and capable and full of joy. The nightmares were a distant memory, no longer having any power over her. Adam had held her through those dark nights, had chased the terrors away, and in doing so had given her the space and safety she needed to heal. Their first child, a son they named James, was born in early April during a late spring snowstorm. Adam delivered the baby himself, having learned the necessary skills years ago from an old trapper. Lucy labored through the night, and when their son finally arrived with a lusty cry, Adam held both of them with tears streaming down his face. "We made something beautiful," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Something pure and good." Lucy looked down at their son, then up at her husband, and felt her heart overflow. They had both come from such dark places, had both been haunted by things that might have destroyed them. Instead, they had found each other, had healed together, and now they were creating new life and new hope. The years that followed were full and rich. They had 2 more children, a daughter named Emma and another son named Thomas. The cabin grew with their family, becoming a true home rather than just a shelter. They went down to Glenrio every spring, maintaining their connection to the outside world, but always returned to their mountain sanctuary. Lucy never forgot the dark time, the nightmares that had nearly broken her, but they no longer defined her. They were simply part of her story, the difficult chapters that had led her to Adam and to this life she cherished. On the rare occasions when shadows of those old dreams tried to resurface, Adam was always there, his strong arms around her, his deep voice reminding her she was safe, she was loved, she was home. Adam thrived as well, the isolation he had once craved replaced by the warmth of family. He was a devoted father and husband. His considerable strength used to protect and provide for those he loved. The demons from his war years no longer haunted him as they once had. Lucy and their children had given him a reason to fully return to life rather than just existing at the edges of it. As the children grew, Lucy and Adam told them stories of how they had met, carefully edited for young ears. They spoke of finding each other when both were hurting, of helping each other heal, of choosing love even when it would have been easier to remain isolated and alone. The children grew up understanding that people could survive terrible things and still build beautiful lives on the other side of tragedy. When Lucy was 29 and Adam was 37, they made a decision. Their children were getting old enough that they needed proper schooling, more interaction with other children. The isolated mountain life, beautiful as it was, had limitations when it came to raising a family. They would spend winters in the mountains as they always had, but summers would be spent in Glenrio, where the children could attend school and be part of a community. It was a good compromise, honoring both Adam's need for the wilderness that had saved him and the practical needs of their growing family. They built a small house on the edge of Glenrio, and their children thrived with the change, making friends and learning from the school teacher while still spending half the year in the wild places their parents loved. Martha and Henry became surrogate grandparents to the children, spoiling them thoroughly and telling them stories of when their mother had first arrived in town, a frightened girl who had seemed barely alive. The children listened with wide eyes, unable to reconcile that version of their mother with the strong, capable woman they knew. "Your father saved her," Martha would tell them. "He held her through the darkest nights and chased the nightmares away. That is what real love looks like." On their 10th wedding anniversary, Lucy and Adam took a trip together, just the 2 of them, leaving the children with Martha and Henry. They rode up into the high country, to a place Adam knew where a hot spring bubbled up through the rocks. They camped there for 3 days, talking, making love, and simply being together without the demands of children and daily life. On the last evening, as they sat together in the warm water with stars overhead and steam rising around them, Lucy leaned back against Adam's broad chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. "You remember those first nights?" she asked softly. "When you would hold me and talk me through the nightmares?" "I remember everything," Adam replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Those nights changed both our lives. I never told you this properly, but thank you. Thank you for seeing me when I was so broken, for offering help when you had no reason to, for loving me when I could barely love myself." Adam turned her in his arms so they were face to face. "Lucy, you gave me just as much as I gave you. You brought me back to life. You reminded me that I was more than my past, more than the things I had done and seen. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to be more than just a man hiding in the mountains. So thank you, my love. Thank you for choosing me, for trusting me, for building this life with me." They kissed deeply, the warm water surrounding them, the vast wilderness spreading out in all directions. They had both been so lost once, so broken by the violence and trauma they had experienced. But they had found each other in that darkness, had held onto each other through the worst of it, and had built something beautiful on the other side. Lucy never slept without dreams now, but they were good dreams. Dreams of her children laughing, of Adam's strong hands building something new, of the life they had created together against all odds. The nightmares that had once controlled her were gone, chased away by the mountain man who had offered her his strength, his understanding, and his heart. They lived a long and happy life together, watching their children grow up and have children of their own. They divided their time between the mountains and the town, between solitude and community, between the wild places that had healed them and the civilized world that needed them. Adam lived to be 73, strong and vital almost to the end. When his time came, it was peaceful in the mountain cabin they had built together so many years before. Lucy held his hand as he slipped away, whispering her love and gratitude for the life they had shared. Lucy lived another 5 years after Adam passed, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She never remarried, needing no one else after having had the great love of her life. She told stories of Adam to anyone who would listen, making sure his memory lived on, making sure people understood the depth of his kindness and strength. When Lucy died at 78, she was buried next to Adam in a small cemetery outside Glenrio. Their graves overlooked the mountains they had both loved, the wild places that had given them shelter and healing. Their children erected a simple stone marker with both their names and a single line beneath. He held her through the darkness, and together they found the light. It was a simple epitaph for an extraordinary love story. Two broken people who had found each other when they needed it most, who had healed together, who had built a life full of love and meaning despite the trauma they had endured. Lucy had never slept without nightmares until Adam held her through those long, difficult nights and chased the terrors away. In doing so, he had given her back her life, and she had given him back his. Their descendants continued to live in the area for generations, carrying on the legacy of strength, resilience, and love that Lucy and Adam had established. The cabin in the mountains became a family retreat, lovingly maintained and visited by each new generation who wanted to connect with the place where it had all begun. The story of Lucy and Adam became something of a legend in Glenrio, told and retold with various embellishments over the years. But at its core, the truth remained simple and powerful. Two wounded souls had found each other in the aftermath of tragedy. One had offered shelter and safety. The other had offered trust and hope. Together, they had created something beautiful that endured long after they were gone. And in the mountains above Glenrio, if you listened carefully on quiet nights, some people swore you could still hear echoes of Lucy's laughter and Adam's deep voice. Proof that love like theirs never truly dies, but lives on in the land they cherished and the family they created together.